Welcome to PhotoRec.tv Critiques. This is the show where you send pictures in and I critique them. I want to thank those people who have sent their photos in because I know it's difficult at times to put your work out there in front of people, and especially for the purpose of getting it critiqued. But it is a fantastic way to grow as a photographer, and I focus on not tearing down your pictures and telling you you're a terrible photographer. We all started as beginners. All of us. Nobody picked up the camera and started making amazing pictures, and I still make plenty of crappy pictures. But what I want to do in these shows is give you concrete action items that next time you're out there at the scene, you can put into play to capture better images. We're going to be working through several different themes, and our first this week is wildlife. Just a reminder as we get started, from each week I'll be picking my favorite image. That will live for a week on top of the PhotoRec.tv Facebook page as the little cover image. So the first image we're going to look at today in the wildlife section is Caroline's red-tailed hawk enjoying breakfast, or maybe lunch, or dinner. Caroline sent along a DNG, so there's already been some edits to this, which I really like to see what the photographer has already done to their picture. But let's cheat for a second and just look at this straight out of camera by hitting the reset button. So a good bit duller. You were back a little bit. Maybe you're, you only had a 50mm lens. That's your longest lens, and so you've cropped in, and that's very nice. And I think you've done an excellent job with post-processing exposure. We have a nicely captured snow that is white but not blown out. The colors of the red-tailed hawk are quite vibrant but look realistic, are not overly saturated. I think you've done a great job there. As far as composition goes, again, I love positioned over here on the kind of right side of the frame with the head into the empty part of the frame. That all strengthens the image. If I turn our cropping on for a second, you can see rule of thirds. You put them on those PowerPoint lines, or you put the hawk and prey right there on those PowerPoint lines. That all is very nice. The only thing I can really suggest for you to try in future shots like this is anytime you've got a creature with eyes, an organism with eyes, human, bird, slug, it can be really interesting to get down at that eye level so that we can make contact as a viewer and feel like we're really part of this experience. Maybe we would even feel like a little like we're the prey if we're down looking into this hawk's eyes. I know that can be tricky. You don't want to spook the animal in this case, but that really can add a lot of impact. An alternative option is to shoot from a really unique angle. So very high, straight down might be another way. I think that would be very difficult in this instance to capture it. But this angle right here just feels like kind of from normal human eye level, maybe a little bit lower, and it doesn't add anything. It doesn't add any specialness. So keep an eye out for that in the future. But as I said, your post-processing, your exposure, and overall image, very nice. So speaking of being at eye level, we've got Matthew's nuthatch here. And I feel like a little insect on a bark about to get picked off by this creature. He is zeroed in on us, and he is really looking at us. That's great. But let's see if we should reset. I haven't looked at this one in detail. Okay. So the day was a little bit cooler and duller. You've warmed it up a good bit, and you've cropped in a little bit more, and you've actually made it a portrait or a vertical orientation. I think that's all good. It's a little warm for my taste, and I would be inclined to cool it just a little. And that brings it back into kind of a little bit more realistic for me. And you've brought the highlights down all of the way. I see that already. So sometimes when the highlights come down all the way and you still have a bright area here, you bring them back up and then try to bring your exposure down and see if your exposure will do that for you. And if it can, rescue that area. If it's not lost, we can also turn on our little highlight marker right there. So somewhere right around there. But overall, we're a little dark now, so we can bring the shadows up. And not quite. So we have an image here where the dynamic range is just a little bit more than the camera was capable of capturing. I think the goal in this case is to minimize as little detail lost in this area. I don't care about this back here at all. That's not the subject. That's just kind of background stuff. It's really right there that I care about. And so I'm going to try to balance that. as best I can. And I think I'm happy with that spot. Maybe raise the shadows up a little bit more. The other thing is, this stick here. It is in focus enough that it's distracting, mostly because it's intersecting with our nuthatch. This stick up here is about the same, and this one down here. So, but those don't matter to me because they actually can be used to kind of frame our bird. But this stick intersecting here, what can you do about that? If possible, a small shift to the right in future would move and give us some space here on the right. Overall, though, I think this is a really nice image. I might try to put on, you got clarity up to 25. I might paint a little bit more clarity right on the nuthatch. Oh, it does look like you've done that already some. And I also might try to bring up the exposure of those darker areas on the nuthatch as well. So try to do both those things to really kind of get it to stand out without messing up or messing with that little area there. Nice, cute bird, nice image. Jason's got a squirrel. So bird, squirrel. I think this is a little red-tailed squirrel. And we've got the original raw and then the final JPEG that Jason created. I believe you're shooting with the Panasonic GH3. So I love the positioning and kind of colors of this image. I think you've done a really nice job here. And don't have a whole lot to say. We've got some intersecting with the thing, but that's okay. But we got this one stick up here that just, again, it's kind of in focus the same as the rest. So I'm just going to use my tool. I'm just going to quickly take that out. And when I hit done, it's gone. Now you might still see it a little bit because you just watched me do that. But if you were somebody else coming along and looking at this image for the first time, or even had looked away and then looked back, you'd be like, hey, there's nothing funny up there in that corner. And you could, of course, take a little bit more time to do that. The other thing that I feel like this squirrel has is, well, one, he's kind of in a funny position, but not much we can do about that. He feels a little green, and that is something that happens, and we'll see that on some other images too during these critiques. Anything outdoors in the summertime, surrounded by the green, is going to end up with a greenish cast on it. So this is where I really like to get my adjustment brush and just kind of warm it up a little bit and see if we can't get rid of some of that green cast there on our creature. And it's very subtle. It should be coming through, but that just right there is making me a good bit happier. The other thing I might try is a little bit more clarity as well to brush on, but being careful not to add too much clarity and end up looking a little extra crunchy. The other thing, just looking at it again, I might tilt it just a little bit. And if I can get him a little bit further to the left, I would be happy with that, because that's going to give me just that kind of rule of thirds that we looked at with Caroline's hawk. And just make it a little bit more of an impactful image. Nice job, Jason. Jamie's got a dragonfly. And can we just stop for a moment and marvel at these wings and nature? I mean, I'm not being funny here. It is amazing what these creatures can do, and it is amazing when you look at their wings like this. So we've got some awesome detail here. Now, I know that Jamie captured this with a Sony a6000 and the 18-200 lens, which, that's not the sharpest, fastest, bestest lens in the world for sure, but we have great detail here. First thing I'm going to do is crop this down so it's symmetrical. It's clearly not symmetrical, but it doesn't feel not symmetrical for a purpose. It just feels like it ended up this way. And that bothers me. If there's a non-symmetry shot and it feels deliberate, I'm totally fine with that. But when we have a shot like this, I want some symmetry. So I'm noticing that these wings aren't identical, but I can use this kind of like little bit of the wing here and here to try to match up. And that seems pretty close to me. If I get my rule of thirds grid back on, the dragonfly is pretty much centered there. I might be able to come in a little bit more. But I think that's good. I think right there's good. And then, your exposure here is quite good. I would add in a little bit of clarity. And I might even just paint clarity on this area, because when you add clarity to this kind of softer area, it can end up looking a little funny. So I might add it just to there. And then otherwise, I think this is a quite nice image. Bring up the vibrance a little, and maybe the saturation just a touch to pop that color out in that area. And maybe overall exposure brighten some too, but not too much. I think that's very nice. So really just thinking about being deliberate with your framing, either strongly symmetrical or strongly asymmetrical, but not kind of this half in between shot. Alexandra has some little butterfly on the end of a flower bit. Now this nicely illustrates what photographers talk about a lot, and that is very carefully picking the time of day you go out to shoot. I know in our support group we had questions about this in the past week. Shooting during midday, you have this very harsh, direct light that is very difficult to work with. There is just really not much you can do during that time of day. And that's what I'm looking at here in these flowers. They've just got direct, hard light on them, and the detail is lost. If we turn on our little highlight indicator, we can see there, and we can bring our highlights down. But even though it says it is no longer, clipping, the detail is already lost, especially in this JPEG that we're working with. It's possible otherwise. But that, just because I opened with all of that doesn't mean that I don't think this is a good image. I think this image has a lot of strength. I love the backlit wings. But let's go to our cropping tool. And I'm cropping to show you what I think would have been a better composition to begin with. You certainly can crop after the fact, but in general, your idea should be trying to crop with this in mind. So I think that's better. He's now perched up in that top left corner point. Call it a PowerPoint if you want. And then the image just kind of flows down the flower and around. I would add in a little bit more clarity. I'd brush on a little bit of clarity. Or let me show you another way to get clarity on quickly. Let's use the little gradient tool. This is the Radial Gradient. I'm just going to pop it around right there, just like that. And yeah, make sure it's working on, yeah, just like that. And I think that looks pretty good. If I was working on this a little bit more, I might brush in a little bit of softness back here just to further soften that area, and I might tone down the brightness as well. The other thing that I've been doing a lot lately that I like is a little bit of vignette. There's a lot of empty space in this image, and I think just a little bit of vignetting, darkening that area up and around there, really kind of draws the attention into this area right here that I like. This might be another place too. I'm just looking at how pale that green is. If we can kind of get that green to be a little bit darker and a little bit greener, it's pretty, that's a pretty mild adjustment, but I think it does add a little bit to the image. All right. I'm not sure whose monkey this is, but the first thing I notice is cropping. And it looks like they've actually already cropped some, but I would crop, not crop, straight. I would straighten more. And I'm going for those eyes to be about level, somewhere right around there. And we're not losing any more. And I do love, so that to me right away looks better. I do love that the monkey is positioned on that PowerPoint, kind of on the left third again. I'm going to repeat myself a lot during these critiques because it's the same kind of general idea. And this tail, you didn't cut off this long tail. It's fantastic. You want to watch out for that. We do have this kind of bright light, but the monkey, it's just hitting the top of the head. The monkey is backlit. And if you have to shoot during the brightest part of the day, shooting backlit is the way to go. Subjects, doesn't matter if your subjects are people, flowers, whatever. Shooting backlit like this does a nice job. And I think you've done a great job. We could try to bring those highlights down a little bit. You've done that already. I might try to bring them down a little bit more. And you could also use that local area adjustment brush. Maybe just bring exposure down up there as well. And the other thing is that a lot of times you can get this kind of bluish cast. So you could try to warm that up a little bit. And then it doesn't quite have that blue harsh light effect to it. And let's bring our highlights down a little bit more. And I think you could argue one way or the other whether or not that's a real difference. Let's just use it as an example to show you what you can do. I think really all this image needed was a bit of straightening. And I think you've done a nice job here. This is another one where I feel like it could, let's close that, could benefit from some vignetting. Oh, you've done a bunch already? Oh, you have. Let's look what it looks like, Alf. Oh, you've added a bunch already. That looks nice. The other thing I'm noticing is when I did vignette is this area is pretty bright down here. It didn't catch my eye early on, but it's starting to now. So we could crop in a little bit more. We could also go to a more custom aspect ratio, like a 16:9. And then we have this kind of wide panorama of the monkey. And I think that's a stronger image. Oh, we've got some galloping, trotting horses. This feels, are they Icelandic ponies? I'm not sure if that's where we are, if that's what these are. This is another one that seems to need some straightening right away. So I'm going to just grab this and start to straighten until somewhere around here. Now I know we lose some of those horses, but let's see a little bit more. No, where's our horizon? Sorry, I was looking at the horse hooves, and I should be using that horizon back there. Somewhere around there. Feels to me like a straighter, stronger image. Now another thing that I notice is that this image seems pretty soft. If we look, we're working at a 2400 by 1600. So this is a pretty small image. Prior to cropping, what was it at? 3000 by 2000. Let's try our straight line thing again too. Let's just kind of connect those mountaintops and say those are the straight line. There we go. So that is a little distracting. We had a discussion in the support group about composition versus sharpness, and sharpness is important, but we all decided that composition was more important than sharpness in many cases. But you don't want an image that is as soft enough that's starting to distract from your composition, and that's just what's starting to happen here. I don't quite know, we don't have more metadata, so I don't quite know what our settings were, but we definitely feel like this is a bit noisy. Otherwise, I think it's pretty nice. I might bring down our highlights a little, see if we can get a little bit more detail out of those clouds up there. Not quite. Yeah, I don't really have any other suggestions for this image at this time. I actually am not happy with, I'd like a little bit more room in front of the snout. So I'm going to do this. That way I don't chop any horses. We're very close to the tail of that one there, but we have a little bit of leading room for the snout of this one up here. And a really cool scene. And again, going back to Caroline's very first one, we're actually just below their eye level, which is kind of a unique way to look at these horses. It adds a little bit of tension to this because I feel like the photographer could be in danger potentially, and that just adds a little bit of impact to this image. But we really got to watch that softness and look at why that's happening and try to avoid it in the future. All right, so now I need to pick a favorite shot from this group of shots to put on the Facebook cover page for a period of a week or so. And we have some great shots here. I think I have hopefully given all of these photographers some ideas, some things to think about as they work through their shots. And I would like to and I'm going to pick the monkey for the Facebook cover page for this week. There's something about, we're on that eye level. Especially my crop of this 16:9, that tail stretching out over there. I think the photographer has done a nice job of making sure that tail wasn't cut off. And that'll be up there on the Facebook page. And that's all for this week's theme. If you found this video helpful, give it a quick thumbs up. If you would like to submit an image for a future critique, visit photorec.tv/crits, that's CRITS, to learn more about how you can do that and improve your photography. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.